Let's spill the tea.
You have to leave it in so people know it's live. Yeah. If you want to partner with big...
Let's spill the tea. So you grew up in this small... right now it's getting very interesting.
pressure and a lot of stress.
Evaluating the world.
And I felt like, oh my gosh, everybody is so far ahead. And so my message is...
Spill the tea. Ready? Let's go. So you do marketing for Particula or?
I'm the chief growth officer of Particula and founder. So it's not only marketing, it's also like finding a strategy how you get your brand internationally known. I feel like it's way more. You have to figure out how do you make revenue and how you can like find the right customers and who's the right customer. It's like building the product, and the other side is like how can you like get it out and how can you make people love your product and know your company, and also connect your company with the values you want them to connect to be. For instance, we are a fintech, so of course we want that people think we are trustworthy and transparent and professional and serious. So it's not easy and tough, but yeah, I love what I do.
So tell us about who is Nadine Wilken. And Nadine just spilled coffee. Let's spill the tea. Let me get you like tissue. Yeah, so tell us about who's Nadine Wilken. Wilken, right?
Wilke.
Wilke. German pronunciation is a bit difficult for me.
I know, it's like for everybody. I lived in the United States for a year after graduation, and my last name was always a problem. It was always like, it was always like they will like throw up immediately. Wilke.
But that's how I do it, right?
Wilke. Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders of Particula and chief growth officer, and I'm 27 years old, live in Munich, not born here. I moved here from Saxony-Anhalt, which is a state of Germany, which most people are not really want to go there because there's literally not much. Yeah. I mean, the only cities you have there is Magdeburg, which rarely people know. So yeah, exactly. Okay. So only people know like Leipzig, but that is like close by, but not even in Saxony-Anhalt, it's in Saxony. So, but Berlin is also not far. So yeah, and I moved here. I studied originally economics. I moved then in COVID times to Munich, which was really challenging. Moved to Munich when there's like nothing you could do, right?
And like, so you grew up in this small village town?
Yeah, it's a village. Yeah.
How's the life there?
I mean, it's fun because, you know, there's always something to do. But when you wanted to like go out and stuff, there's like not much. I mean, there were like maybe 2 bars. I mean, back then more clubs than nowadays. Nowadays there's only 1 club where you could go out. But
it's a good club,
but it's not even good. So basically no options. So you had to either go to drive 1.5 hours to Berlin, which is also super expensive when you're young, or you go to Leipzig, which is also like an hour away. Yeah, that's the only way how you could like really see something. But it was a great time. I basically lived in a village which had only like 2 streets. So it was in the middle of a forest. Right next to us, there were the river Elbe. That's why I have a great connection to nature, because I grew up basically in a forest and just played outside the whole day.
And do you also love to go to Berlin?
Oh yeah, so that's also the reason why I always wanted to live in a big city. And after I graduated high school, I did an au pair year in New York City or close to New York. So that's like basically, I think, the biggest city you could move to, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking for the extreme situations, and
why not? You only live once.
Yeah. And then I was really sad when I came back to Germany after a year. But now, since I'm 27, and I feel like the older I get, I'm more drawn back to the nature again, which is really interesting. So I don't mind really to live in the nature again.
Why do you feel like you are more drawn to the nature when you go, like, you know, right now?
Yeah, I think especially as a founder, you are always so, you know, you have a lot of pressure and a lot of stress and highs and also a lot of lows, and you know, it can be can be really overwhelming. And I feel like when I go today, your office here is in the middle of Munich. When you go in the city, I always feel like, oh, I'm so annoyed with like all the noises, and because you always have it around. Yeah. And when I'm usually on weekends, I try to get out of the city into the nature where you literally hear nothing. And when you like really drive outside in the middle of the forest and you just stop for a second and listening, and you hear nothing except some birds, sounds from like leaves falling down. It's just so calming, and I was like, okay, I don't need to live in a city anymore.
Yeah,
I want that.
I know. And also, like, to be honest, one thing I really don't like European big cities is like the pigeons.
Oh yeah,
they don't fly. They just walk.
Even the birds walk.
Yeah, even the birds walk. It's like, why can't you just like, like you have your way, your airway is here, and then they just like walk and then fly through your face. But also on the other hand, I feel like probably we degrade the nature too much. That is why here is the only place where they can have a chance of survival as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like talking about city, but bring me back to like your childhood. I really want to know, when you grew up, were you always entrepreneurial?
I think that now we have to define what is entrepreneurial, so to say, right? I think entrepreneurial is having the passion and the wish to live life how you want to live, or you want to be the decision maker basically in like every situation, having the control, have your own fate in your own hands. Also being really independent and always like I do my own thing. And I think this was always me. In school, I was often the troublemaker. Actually,
I would never assume. I can never tell.
I was always like joking around, getting, I don't know, I think like in primary school I got kicked out very often out of the classroom. Like, yeah, because I was talking while Nadine.
Look at you, so proper. And you got kicked out from elementary school, okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then in 9th grade, when you're like, okay, school soon in a few years will be over, and then I felt like, okay, now I have to get serious. Now I have to like really work and learn and get my grade. So my grades were really bad. I had only like 1 to 6 worst, 1 the best, and I always were like the 4, sometimes 3.
Like D in the US.
Yeah, D, like always like, yeah, but that was fine for me. And then I was like in 9th grade, I was like, okay, now I have to get better, otherwise I have no chance in like studying or stuff. So yeah, and then I changed in like, I think it was only a half year, all my grades from D's to A's and B's. So it was insane. Even the teachers couldn't believe it. But this is like where I really started to, okay, I want something in life. I want to, reach my goals. And I knew that at some day I want to do my own stuff. I want to be my own boss. I want to have my own company, but I never knew how it will look like.
And how your parents thought about your D grade? Are they how's the education? Right?
I think they were fine because I always like got through. But if I wouldn't, especially my mother, she would be like, why are you doing that? You're so smart. You can do that. So why are you not doing it? Are you just lazy? When I changed at some point, they were really impressed. I think that was also really great. My mother, she always let me be. She never controlled me. She never told me what to do. She let myself develop my own character, making my own mistakes. She allowed me basically everything, but she said, if you want to go there or want to do that, then at least you have to like be in contact with me. So I know where you are and when, but she never said you're not allowed, which was crazy because I was like, oh, my mom is so cool. I can do whatever I want. But I felt like in duty still, because she gave me that trust, I have to like pay back to her. So it was a great, I think it was a great parent. So I'm not sure if it that goes well with like every personality, but it went well. I can also imagine some teenager go crazy then, right? And like do maybe really stupid decisions. But I don't know, it was a good balance, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's a really risky business for parents to choose either I let the kids to develop their own personality and learn their mistakes by themselves, or like kind of, overly protected.
Helicopter.
Yeah, exactly. So also I realized when I was growing up, my parents always tell me, hey, you are so smart, why don't you study? Because I was always the last one in the class as well when I was younger. And then I think the fact that your parents and your teacher always tell you, hey, Nadine, you are so smart, or like Kuan-Ning, you are so smart, why you're not studying? Then you think you're smart, why should I study? You know what I mean? So I think in the future, if I have kids, I'm just gonna tell them, hey, you're stupid. No, I'm joking. But like, you know what I mean? I think there's a psychological effect behind that as well. But yeah, so you always want to have your own things, and how you came together with Particula.
Yeah, so after then I studied economics. I already, besides studying, worked for a scale-up. It's called Swapfeeds, which is like a known company. They do bicycle as a service here from the Netherlands. Right now it's not even a startup anymore because they grew a lot in the last years. And for them I built a location and was also kind of like entrepreneurial for them because...
How old were you?
Just 22, 23 then, yeah. And I stayed like the whole time when I was still studying, but I worked like 35 hours a week for them.
Wow.
Yeah, it was stressful. And then that's why my university grade isn't that good.
But you learned from the society.
But I learned from real life practice, which I thought was way more valuable. But of course, after I graduated and tried to get certain jobs, I didn't get it because they didn't look, okay, what did she do besides studying? They just looked at my grades, or the computer was like sorting out my application because my grade wasn't that well.
Really?
And so I was like, oh man, I should have like focused more on studying. But I really thought that the other stuff would be more worth. Even I already had a big position at Swapfeeds because I was managing the whole customer service team, which were like 50 people from Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, Austria. It was already like a big role. They just threw me into the cold water because I didn't know how to do onboarding and recruiting. I didn't know how to have difficult feedback conversation with employees who don't perform that well or did something really, really bad. For instance, like I don't know what to do, and they were mostly older than I was, so I was like, oh my gosh, but I think that's the way how you learn the best, right? And then feeling like, okay, I have all this experience, and then I'm applying and still not getting consultancy jobs, for instance, because I was like, okay, I go to consultancy like everyone who studies economics, right? I had no chance. So I was like, okay. I found, luckily, a position in a big industry company in their IT department, and that was how I came into the whole world of technology, because they worked on different kind of emerging technologies and how you can leverage blockchain, AI, VR, quantum computing, and so on for their own industry, so to say. So it was not from the finance perspective, more from the industry perspective. But this is how I, were introduced to that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really want to do something in the space of technology, because I think it's so interesting having new, like from Swapfeeds, you kind of like have this whole startup environment and innovative business model. And then you have this big SDAX noted company, which is like looking into like emerging technology. So I was like, okay, I really want to do something there. And then met my co-founder Tim, and he has a finance background, so he worked for KPMG, also then for a consultancy for crypto regulation. Then we brought our professions, so to say, together and said, okay, we have here a great idea, which was Particula then we took it from there. We applied for an incubation program here in Germany. It's called Blockchain Founders Group, and this incubation program was great because if you never founded a company, where do you start? It's so overwhelming. What paperwork do I have to do, right? Do I have to write a business plan? And what is in the business plan? Yeah. How do I get
financial statement,
taxes? This incubation program, you kind of like, they take you by hand and give you everything what they have, and also don't let you do mistakes, which maybe other first-time founders are doing. So this was a great start. And then they even also financed us in the end of the program. So we had the first funding secured, which was a great achievement.
Yeah, so it has been almost 2 years, right? Particula. So I know that you raised a lot of money. Actually, like Particula is considered quite successful in terms of database in the Web3, real estate, real world asset. You tokenize them, right? So how much have you raised already?
So we raised, so last year was a really difficult year for like every startup, except you did something with AI. I think they were the lucky ones last year, but yeah, it was a really bad year for the overall economy and also for financing startups. So we didn't do like a big equity round. We basically collected money on the run. So we were really cost constrained. We hadn't had enough resources. So we tried to be really efficient on like everything we did. I think in total, so we collected in the beginning of last year, then in the middle, and then end of December, which was just a few months ago. Yeah. And I think when you put that all together, in total was around 1.2 million around that. This year we want to raise like this all you can consider as pre-seed, because we never really did a round, but people would say, okay, this is now the pre-seed round, and this year we want to do the seed round, and this will be also the first equity round. So it's going to be exciting because we want to raise also mainly with American investors and really, want to get a broader network on an international base.
Yeah. So like, you definitely have a stake on fundraising that I believe, and then you are the chief growth officer in Particula. I want to get into more like personal topics. It's like you said you didn't have a good grade when you grew up, but right now you as an entrepreneur, and then within 2 years, alongside with your co-founders, fundraise 1.2 million. Do you think education is important? Right now, so many AI sorting people's resume. If it's Harvard, if it's MIT, I want only A student. How do you see this, especially right now, Gen Z? I know you're also Gen Z. The generation is so different because right now they don't go to school because online resources is so fruitful, right?
Yeah, it's a difficult question now. I think you cannot say, okay, people who only went to Harvard and don't have experience are like worse, or, and you cannot also say people who don't study and just found their company with 17 are better, so to say. So I think there is no golden rule, but I definitely feel like that education is really important when it's about setting a baseline and learning how to learn. This is the important stuff in our education system, which really brings the most value. It's not the exact thing we are learning, because if you think back, what do you really remember of the stuff you learned? Like what the definitions you once learned, I don't think you did, but you know how to do it. And I think this is the most important skill you need in order to found a company, because you have to teach yourself still, because you cannot. There's no education system which will teach you everything you have to know in life in terms of personal connections and also the business side and numbers and marketing and whatever. But you need to have the capability to teach yourself, to be independent, to know where to find the material you need. I think that's the so-called soft skills, so to say. But I think this is the most important thing. And how to communicate and how to socialize with others. I think that's the most important thing. And that's what we also kind of learn in school, because you have your classmates, you have the teacher, which is like the first hierarchy, so to say, right? Mm-hmm. Similar to when you work in a company, you have your boss, where you have the hierarchy, you have your colleagues, which are kind of like your classmates, which you have to work together sometimes. But of course, you learn only when you make mistakes, when you just do stuff. You don't always learn everything there. You have to learn by yourself or find mentors who can maybe teach you also,
Yeah, so like one thing I have learned in a hard way is that building a startup is just building a hiring agency. You need to hire right people. And if you hire the right people, smart people, let them do their thing, because I don't think we as a human, we are good at everything, If we rehire somebody, we need to trust them to do their best, right? That is how I see it. And then I read this book from Stephen Butler. He once homeless in London, and then he got his company IPO at the age of 25.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I read this book, and then he said the first 10 people in the startups are the most important ones.
Yeah.
So what are you looking for?
I think hiring is such an interesting topic. And I hear that very often in my network. You're like, oh, HR.
Yeah, right. Honestly.
but it's like the most important thing actually in a company, because as you say, when you're a startup, you don't have much resources. So if you hire the wrong people, you will waste a lot of money and a lot of time. There is no wrong person, so to say. But there's a wrong timing. So you always have to think, is this person right now the best fitting for this position, or maybe in a year when we are a larger team? Because sometimes we also had the discussion, do we get now kind of like a head off person, but then the person needs mostly a team because they are used to have a team. But in a startup, you cannot just hire 3 marketing assistants who do the executive stuff. You need a person who can be an owner and execute the stuff. Like you need the strategy guys, but also the people who execute. And especially in a startup, you need like both in one person who also wants to make their hands dirty and go beyond, because otherwise you can't survive as a startup. This is super important. And also hire people where you feel like they have skills you don't have, or might be better than you are. Because if they are better than you are, perfect. But sometimes people are hiring people who are not better, and then you have the problem that you have to teach them and you have to take them by the hand, and then it's not helping you because you're spending so much time of that, and you could just easily do it then by yourself. This is very, very, very important, and a great topic to talk. I could talk hours for that.
Yeah, but I think it's really great point, right? Especially right now, younger generation are entering the workforce, like Gen Zs entering. I think this year or last year already, the first year of Gen Z, graduated from university. They are looking for the most psychedelic kind of startups, and then having yoga session. I can walk in the afternoon, having coffee, and then come back, have a mental, brain capacity to keep working. How's the company culture, since you founders are so young, and then what type of culture you wanted to promote?
That's also something we just discussed actually in the team, because we are hiring right now. So that's why we discussed that also very initially, finding the right person, because you have to find a person who fits also into your own culture. Because if you hire a person who doesn't fit but has a perfect CV, coming from the best companies and studied at Harvard and whatever, but this person just doesn't fit into the values of the culture, you will mess up your whole team. Because it will destroy the energy. It will maybe bring other people to quit their job. And then you basically start from the beginning, and you cannot really leverage the skills of this person because, it just doesn't fit. So that's a really good thing. And I think what we did, and I'm really, really happy about that. And I'm also more than happy to hear how it is with you guys at Fund the Planet. Our company culture is there's no one in the company who has a big ego. I think this is because for most also founding teams, the problem is always an ego thing. So there is no ego. If somebody did a mistake, we say, hey, okay, it's a mistake, it's not good, but how can we solve that together? How can we make it better the next time? So it's not like blaming because the other person is already feeling bad. And then also we have a very supportive culture. So everybody has his area and his expertise. But sometimes, of course, Tim is focusing on funding, and he's saying, hey guys, Carsten, I need you in the VC call because they have technical questions, or can someone of you prepare that? And then we just do it instead of are we now your assistant, for instance? And the other way around, if I need something, I will tell them also, hey, I need help with that. Can you give me feedback? And then they just help me. And I think this is what our culture is about. No ego. We are all helpful. We all think about on the bigger picture and how we can get there. No matter if we feel like, oh, I don't get as much as appreciated as someone else, or you know what I mean? There's no such thing.
Rene has his team in terms of B2C, and I have my team in terms of B2B. But of course, you are a startup, so sometimes the member class, right? I can only speak for myself. What I do is I told the team, there is no I. Any output we do is the reputation of everybody's together. And then if you already see something, this wouldn't work after we publish the content and then say, hey, I knew that wouldn't work. Why didn't you contribute at the beginning? When we have discussion, I really appreciate everybody's input. You have idea, I just put it in the chat and everybody for their thoughts on that. And then sometimes it's too over the place, too many opinions, too many advice. Then I would just ask them, hey, give me a score, like 1 to 10. How do you like it? If the score is too low, let's just drop the idea. And then if it's too high and stuff. So I also let them develop their own thing. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw it. We have like new video channel to talk about more industrial thing. And then also like right now we have monthly magazine to update sustainability and Web3 side of things. So that is all my team. Without them, I don't think Founder Planner will survive. That is like, I think I say a lot and I think I will say it like over and over again.
Nice. Yeah. And I think you have also the advantage that you have an office because everybody is talking about new work and like having everything remote is like the best. But this is so challenging because we are remote and in terms of culture and like team feeling and you know what I mean, staying motivated. It's so hard when you just see the team maybe twice a week, just an hour in a call. We have like every culture you can imagine, which is great. Of course, first we are the founders. Carsten lived our CTO lived in Berlin, but he just like gave up everything and is living basically now in Portugal, but now he comes back for a few months and then goes back to Portugal. So Tim and I, we are located in Munich. Then we have a Wolfram. He still has his full-time job, so he's not as involved as the other people. He is in Kaiserslautern, close to Frankfurt. We have our data team and this is crazy. So Hasib is in Germany, but he moved just a few years from Pakistan. We have Ravina, which lives in Linz in Austria, but comes also originally from Sri Lanka and just came here to study and working. We have Tan, which is from Vietnam, and she's in Rome, Italy.
It's a she.
She, yeah.
Oh, really? Tan sounds like a Vietnamese mailman.
Oh, that's interesting. I have no clue. Tan is a her. She's in Rome. And then we have our developer team and they're also, most of them are in Vietnam actually. It's hard to really get to know each other when there are no coffee break talks, you know. So what we did, and I think we just had our feedback with our data team because they just started 4 weeks ago with us. And I think what I really loved about, they gave us great feedback. So what we do is we are a fintech and one of our products is a database basically where we aggregate data and they are mainly working on that. And then we created kind of like a call, which is twice a week at 6 p.m. and it's called Data Party, where it's like 1 hour and we are all in basically aggregating data and chatting and hearing music. So everybody is sending Tim, for instance, songs they love and wants to show. And then we are listening. Then we're also talking about cultures because I have no clue about Vietnamese culture. I have no clue about Pakistan culture or Sri Lanka. So we are talking like, how was it with you guys back then at school? How did you do that or that? And so you really learn them. And they were really quiet at the beginning when they started working with us. Now they're like really unfolding their personality and sharing and laughing. And they really said that this is such a great thing to do because they feel connected with us. And they also say it's so great that you as founders are still so hands-on and do that with us together. It gives us the feeling that we don't think, oh, we are better, so we don't do stuff like that, or you know what I mean? We just make our hands with them dirty. And as a remote company, you have to think about how can I create this? Like, how can I make up that we don't have an office where we see each other in person?
Totally. You know, one thing I see very different from more senior entrepreneur versus younger entrepreneurs is that in the hierarchical aspect, in the younger generation, we don't see that so often right now. And I see that still in a traditional company. And I don't know if that is good or bad because they experience something that I haven't. What do you think about that? Do you think right now, because you're a startup and you have this chance to be operational capable with everybody in the same time and time-wise speaking, right? The bigger the company grow, how do you see it?
I think it's super naive to say it will always stay like that. Even when you're like 300, 400 people, I think it's just getting more and more complicated and difficult to control everything. But I think here again, it's super important to not give up hiring processes too early as a founder, because you feel like, okay, I will just hire an agency or doing that. I feel like for the longest time, you have to try to hire the people yourself, or at least like have the end conversations to make the decisions, because I feel like then you can really put the pieces together of your whole company and the personalities and if the teams fit, so to say. I think that's a challenge every company has, and everybody who's like just saying to like these old corporates, oh, they are like so boomer-like, they don't, I don't know.
I feel like a boomer, but okay.
Easier said than done, because at some point I think you cannot control it 100%, because it has its own dynamic, and at some point it is difficult to be fast and agile, and you just can't, because it's just too big. I cannot judge what I would do because I'm not in that situation, but I know if we are lucky enough to grow that size at some point, that would be a really, really big challenge.
I believe you will grow really big. Like you have IBM as partner, right? Is it IBM or Siemens?
We are talking, for instance, right now with Chainlink. It's still in discussion. Also with another big company, yes, but not public, so to say, and it takes a while. If you want to partner with big companies, it's until it's like through their compliance, and you can't even like use their logo or tell VCs.
Yeah,
it's insane. Yeah,
but like, okay, for people who don't know what is Chainlink, can you simplify it?
Well, yeah, Chainlink is a huge player. I definitely cannot pitch as they can pitch themselves, but I try. So Chainlink is basically trying to solve the problem which blockchain in general has, because blockchain always had the problem of a silo environment. So you have the Web 2 world, which has their own, they are sitting on the cloud, and they are like having their own closed processes, so to say. And then you have blockchain, which is decentralized, and the connection of these two worlds, so to say, is still a problem. And they try to like plug in or be the piece between those two worlds to connect with each other. So you have a streamless data transfer or information transfer or whatever. For us, it's really interesting because our main stakeholders, we are working together with our traditional financial institutions, and their IT infrastructure is also pretty old, and like it's hard to get into that. And so Chainlink is a great partner because they are already integrated a lot of traditional players. And yeah, so we're discussing now like how can this work together look like? Can we do also POC together? And so it's exciting.
Can I conclude that Chainlink is doing something connecting internet and the real world, kind of like synchronize the database? Anything?
If someone from Chainlink is watching, I'm saying, what are they talking about?
Just like really easy, like something.
I think you can say that. So they're basically also a tech company, and they created a different, they're also Oracle, so to say. I think what they also want to focus on in future is to, because they created so many different tech products, they try now to also connect them with each other, because they said, okay, we have to find a solution that we are as a company have products which are connected with each other, so we can connect the world, so to say. So they are like, there's a lot of change happening right now.
And how about Particula? Why your work is important for the world?
Oh, why our work is important? Maybe to explain what we are doing at first. So when we started in 2022, we found this whole space, of course, of blockchain and the use cases. And then everybody knows about cryptocurrency, of course. It was the well-known use case for blockchain. But then you also have the tokenization use case, which means you basically transfer any asset you can imagine onto the blockchain in form of a token, and then can fractionalize it, make a technical financial product out of it, or you just store the data or whatever. So there are like multiple ways to do it or define this use case. But we were really interested of this new asset classes which are getting involved, and also the connection of traditional finance and blockchain using as an infrastructure. Back then we had a lot of discussion with the industry. We wanted to find out what does the market need, where it is lacking, where are the challenges, and we talked to many traditional finance players but also corporates and asked them, and they all said that the problem is for them that the regulatory uncertainty is really, really high. So every country, every part of the world has different regulation in place, which makes it hard to let the assets, so to say, globally flow. Then, of course, security concerns. When we conduct this search, it was right when FTX happened back then. Everyone was skeptical with everything which has to do with crypto or blockchain or whatever. And the last thing, and I thought it was quite interesting, they said the data quality and data availability is pretty poor. So if you want to know, okay, what tokenized assets are out there, where can I invest in it, and what is it about, how safe it is, you just can't find answers. It's really hard. So we said, okay, we have to start aggregating data and finding the patterns, finding out how are these products structured, and create for the first time a data standard for these assets. And back then, as you know, we started in environmental assets because there was like a big hype around tokenization of carbon credits. So we started with that and aggregated everything around carbon, water, biodiversity, renewable energy, and so on. Quickly, we realized the environmental area is one area, but we also have the whole area of commodities, precious metals, rare earth. Then you have the real estate assets where you have also land use, because some see forest also as real estate, basically. You have infrastructure, and then commercial real estate and so on. And the last bucket, and this is the one which is the most dynamic, when you look at traditional finance players, they are most active in there. And it's the classical financial products, so fixed income, private equity, venture capital, everything you can imagine in this area. So classic securities. It's interesting to create this database, and also a rating framework which is assessing then the risk which are evolved around the token. I could tell more, but I don't want to make it too complicated. How do we think we change the world with the product? We wanted to be the player where people are come and have an entry into this market, because making the decision to actually invest is like the second step, right? Because if you want to buy, okay, where do we want to buy? Where do I find it? How do I buy it? This person wants to have the answers at first, and then make the buying decision of choosing a marketplace or an exchange or whatever to buy these assets or create their own products. And I think this is changing the world, because when we stay with the environmental area, people or good projects give them the chance to stand out compared to other projects, and money or more money will flow into these projects. On an economic level, good project gets visible through that and gets more financial resources. So I think this is changing the world. We are definitely not the ones who are changing, but we are part of that. You're always a part, right? Part of a change, in especially when it's about traditional finance and breaking these old structures with this new structure with blockchain. Yeah, it's exciting to be part of this movement.
In the future, if I go to Particula's platform and I get to see, for instance, I can choose, for instance, I want to see environmental investment category. So I will click on that, and I can see all the projects, and ideally with a rating. Or also probably real estate. I want to develop some different real estate asset there, and I click on that will give me all the results plus rating.
So as you can imagine, like a Bloomberg terminal, or like, you find every data. We have like around 300 data per asset. So you choose the category, and then you have different directories where you have the issuer, the token, and the underlying asset. And then have all data and metrics you need to know. How is it connected? Also in terms of compliance and regulation. Also in terms of balance sheet. When I would buy it, do I put it on my balance sheet? We're also answering these questions. Then the rating, which is connected, is important, not with the issuer, but with the token, but with aspects from issuer and from underlying.
So let's compare with Bloomberg Terminator. Bloomberg Terminal.
Like an airport terminal.
Okay, Terminator. Okay, Bloomberg Terminal. And so with Particula, the differentiation is that instead of like Bloomberg has certificate or paper you have the token. What does it mean token represent asset?
Maybe we start with the asset. Like I said, it can be real estate, it can be a forest, it can be a car, it can be expensive shoes or whatever. And you take this asset. If they're super expensive, do we just take the retail perspective here? Because an institution doesn't care about like expensive shoes. But if you some or most people can't buy that stuff directly, or maybe buy the real estate, but they are still interested in investing in it. And on a traditional way, it's not possible to do it. Instead, you take the real estate, create a digital twin on the blockchain infrastructure, and take this digital twin, so to say, and then you can put it in like the smallest pieces, as small as you want, depending also what asset it is, of course. There are also some restrictions, also in every country different. In Germany, for instance, it's not possible to take the real estate and put it on. So here in Germany, they mostly work with so-called SPVs, which is investing in the real estate, but they are tokenizing not the real estate directly, but the SPV. So as you see, it's highly complex. But then you have the smallest pieces, and then you're just being able to invest. And the good thing is you're invested in real estate, but you're not owning it. So you don't have the duty you would have if you own in real estate, because it's such a pain, right? When something is broken, or you always have to pay, or you always have to take care of it. And that way you would just invest and that's it. So that's basically what it is. And the great thing is with smart contract technology, you can put also the obligations and all the metadata and so on of these objects directly into the blockchain or into the token, trade that with you. So you have more transparency because you have more data. You cannot change this metadata in the token anymore.
To summarize that, it's like if Central Park in New York City right now wanted to let people to invest and will be on your platform, there will be like one really big ass Central Park there, and that will be really, really small, one square or one tree or like really, really small part for people to invest in the form of token. And in this token consists all the data such as, okay, what kind of flower here it is.
How much square meters,
food, yeah, exactly. Do I understand you right?
Yeah, but we're not tokenizing ourselves, so that's really important. Therefore, there are like hundreds of tokenization providers out there where people who are asset owners, so I don't know, I think the Central Park is owned by New York, probably by the state. They are the asset owner, and they would go to the service provider and ask them to do the tokenization, and then they're able to sell it,
In terms of rating part, how do you do that? And then what's the process?
So the process is really complex. What we do is, as I said, we aggregate around 300 data points of every asset. All these data points go into the rating engine, you can imagine. And then in the first place, before we even calculate or whatever, we look, okay, what is there, what is not there as an information. And when we have no information at all, that's the worst thing. So even a no has value in it. If we know it's definitely not there or whatever, a no is still worth. And a yes, of course, is the best thing. So this is how you can imagine it. In the first place, what we do is we create a transparency score where we say, okay, all of the 300 metrics, they're yes and no, or we don't know. If we have at least 50% of the yes and no information, we know, okay, we are able to actually conduct an analysis, because if it's less than 50%, then the information basis is just not good enough to be able to say something, right? Then in the next step, we have this transparency score. We are looking at the attributes we have. Every attribute has a different weight, so to say. So some are more important, some less. Categorize it in different scores. So the first one is the economical score, where we look at all kind of economical questions around the token, also the issuer, where we like, okay, what company is behind of that? Is it the startup? Is it DAO? Is it a really mature company like a big bank issuing that? Also, how is supply and demand structured of the token? Does it make sense to buy that? What is also like the economical purpose, for instance? Then besides economics aspects, we are looking on technology aspects, where we look, okay, how is the token, like how did they do the tokenization process? Because it's also depending like what assets, and there are multiple ways to put assets on chain. So we look how they did it, what blockchain ecosystem is being used. I mean, we have so many, the token metrics and tokenomics of the token. The next category is compliance and regulation. regulation where we look into it. How is the token regulated? How is the underlying asset? That can be different. How is KYC, AML processes solved? How can I buy this token like in euro or only in USDC? We also look at environmental impact figures because it's also a risk factor in every asset class, where we also look, okay, what is the electricity consumption of the blockchain ecosystem? Do they also have risk monitoring and disaster recovery when something is happening? And then you have all these different scores I just mentioned and the transparency score, and this combined goes into an overall rating. It's a lot. And we are also working this year on more integrating machine learning because it can go really, really deep into these topics. For instance, do they have a smart contract audit? You could now say if they have an audit, it's the best thing. If they don't, it's not good. But the next question you have to ask yourself, is it now different if, for instance, a company like Quant is auditing, because there are like also hundreds of auditors out there? Is there a difference of that? So you can go really, really granular, many steps of like the rating, which is constantly evolving. There's no finished framework. We are always working on it and benchmarking it and questioning again and again and going deeper. So it's tough, but we're also learning with historical data. And like I said, machine learning is super helpful to train our own algorithms, which can also recognize if something is changed in the token holder rights and the terms and sheets, in the terms and, no. What was it?
Terms and conditions?
Terms and conditions. Terms and sheets.
I know it's a Terminator, but okay.
I have to say it's Saturday morning. Terms and sheets. Terms and conditions, or is something changed? Is there some security alert in the smart contract? Like this stuff has to be immediately recognized by the rating. And we always say for the next generation of assets, we need the next generation of ratings. Yeah. Something which is intelligence in real time, always reflecting what's going on. Because when you look at the classical rating industries where Moody's and Fitch and S&P is in, they create credit ratings for companies, for instance, or whatever. They are doing it once a year. They get paid for the rating. Yeah. And then there are like hundreds of analysts creating this thing once, but that's it. We always aware what's going on, and we always have to adjust these products because these are technical products which are getting traded 24/7. And
yeah, I think it's really important because how I know Moody and those kind of rating companies that they only reassess when the company pays again. That I cannot really agree on, because if Adidas or whatever company today is rating A, but actually they are doing poorly the next year, like in 2 years, and then but there's new rating, but still in this ETF basket or like whatever, then that is the next financial crisis come, right? So that I really don't like. So that is why I really like Particula, and just put it in a simpler kind of form. Back to Central Park example.
You love Central Park. You want to go there?
I mean, I was there, but like I think everybody can imagine, like where do you live? You know Central Park, right? If I say English Garden, nobody know, even though it's bigger than Central Park. But
that's right. It's clear.
So if like New York State, they wanted to put Central Park on chain and then give people access to trade as a token on Particula, then you as Particula, you will look into their process in between the real world asset and putting on chain, kind of like the thing, and then also assess environmental impact and then technical things and stuff. Am I understand you right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if there's a token, so that's a criteria, right? If there's no token, because sometimes I have people coming to me saying, we're thinking about creating it, and can you help us? Blah, blah. I'm always saying, hey, I don't have time to, figure stuff of you out. Please come back when you have a token and you have a product. I'm more than happy to look over it and give feedback. There has to be at least token. They have to use blockchain infrastructure, but also other emerging technologies, because most companies are also using, when we say in the environmental space, they're also using AI, IoT devices, which is connected with the chain database. It's not always blockchain, but different kinds of emerging technologies who make these new kind of assets possible in a more transparent way is interesting for us and a part of our product.
Yeah. So for the people who wanted to understand why you say must be a token, I just want to bring up that it needs to be a token because there are a lot of details, like metadata, whatever there. So that is why Particula is looking into those data to verify, to rate, to give like more simple result for the investors, micro investors, to really have a chance to get into the market. That is how I understood. Right now, it's getting very interesting. So when you're talking all of this thing, I personally find fascinating because I can resonate, right? Because we are kind of in the same industry.
Yeah.
Can you talk about this with your friends and your childhood friends?
Not really.
Yeah. Do you lose friends?
I mean, what I talk with them about is mainly in general, more like business topics in general, like how it is to have your own startup and when you travel, or have when they're really, really interested in that stuff and this kind of lifestyle, because it's so different to a classical 9-to-5 job where you have a safe place and when it's 5 o'clock you just have free time. But I never have free time. Basically, only I take it, but usually I work even on weekends.
Now.
Yeah, like now on Saturday, and that's fine because I chose this way or this path, and I love what I'm doing. But when I go into the topics, I try to make it always super easy and explain, imagine an asset and then you have a digital asset. So I try to not use tokenization because it's mostly they don't get it, but that's fine. I actually love that they don't know or don't understand because I talk so much about the stuff in calls and meetings, and I'm so happy to just hear what they are doing. I'm always I always try when they ask me questions, I'm answer very fast, and they're like, so how about you? What issues do you have? What do you care about right now? What is bugging you on work? Because I'm so done with talking about the stuff, and it's so fresh for me to hear just, I don't know, somebody is annoyed with their colleague or with their boss, and I'm just so curious. And
I know. I think I kind of feel the same, but meanwhile, I lost a lot of friends on the way because first of all, you just don't have time. And then second is that sometimes you're not talking in the same language, even though you are speaking English. How do you manage that? Or what's your feeling? How do you feel as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's so honestly for me it's really hard right now. I have a hard time and really taking care of friends, and also I told you I moved to Munich in COVID, so even before I started funding my startup, I didn't have the chance to really build friendships here. I felt like the only connections I really had were with my colleagues. So, but if you don't have a job with a lot of colleagues where you meet people, I don't know where should I meet people. I also really don't really go partying or out or something. So there's not much where I can meet people, but that's fine for me because I think I'm in a phase right now where I would probably just disappoint most people when they are wanting to do every week something, and I'm always have to say no, I can't, I'm traveling, or I'm here, or I'm just too tired. I think that's the most problem, because even when you're done with work, you're so tired to just get up and go all the way into the city. And I think I'm not doing well on that right now, but this is something I really would love to focus on when, of course, this heavy time of a startup phase, which are always the first 2 years, are the worst, because you have to get used to it also, because no one can tell me that they face these challenges and then just change overnight and say, okay, now I live work-life balance and I do daily sports and I meet almost every week all my friends. So nobody is doing that. So you can only do, work on progress and mess it up once or twice, or, right now I'm focusing a lot on my health, because this was
mental health of
physical, especially because my back is I don't know, I don't feel like
no way.
So
sorry, but you're so young.
I'm such in pain. I'm such in pain, and I also went to
sorry.
all.
I didn't mean to laugh, but okay.
No, don't worry. I just messed it up, and I went to all kind of doctors to because last year I took also pain medication because some nights I couldn't even sleep because I was such in pain.
God, so sorry.
No, don't worry. It's right now I'm working a lot. I went now to an osteopath. I'm not sure if you also say that in English, but he's helping me a lot and figured, you have to do more yoga instead of, because I said when I go to the gym, I feel like it's just getting more tense and I don't feel I can figure out how to get rid of the pain. And this doctor said, okay, your muscles are enough. It's not a muscle thing, and you should stop like training with machines with like putting heavy weights on. You have to do breath work actually, because I have to like go in and deep because he felt like that I'm not really breathing into my stomach, so to say. I'm like a flat breather, and that's why and because of that I have a lot of tension here. It's so insane. I was like, what is he talking about? But it kind of makes sense because the worst part is this here, and he said your lungs are connected with this muscle strength here. And if you're and I don't know the English word for the organ, which is right sitting down their lungs. It's in German it's called Zwerchfell. I don't even know the English word, but you basically, when you breathe in your stomach, you breathe into that, so to say. And if you have struggles with that, the lung thing up here tries to hold or to kind of like help out. And that's why it's so tension, because I have so much tension here. Here backhand, my body is doing that, and my muscles trying to get me back. So, and that's why I'm in such a pain here. And we're working now on that. So I'm really focusing on that now. And when I figure that out, then I am working on, creating.
Okay, got it. Like Renee also has back pain, Renee is my co-founder. And then
I know he does. I think he mentioned that.
Since 10 years. And then he read a book.
Oh, wow.
And then it's gone. The back pain is gone.
Oh, really? Because he wrote a book or because he worked on it?
No, because he read it. And it's about...
he read a book. I thought he wrote the book. Okay, no, I got it.
Probably I said it wrong, but that is what I said. But he read this book, and it's about actually how your brain can change your body. So he just changed his mindset, and then right now his body reacts differently. So his back pain since 10 years is gone.
Wow.
So I was thinking a book afterwards, but like I also read a lot of like neuroscience kind of literature as well, because recently I wanted to get into it. And then actually the mental health is connected with everything. So probably, I don't know, do you feel like sometimes too stressed or?
That's definitely also the case. I mean, it's definitely when you feel pressure, and when you have a startup, you have often the pressure that like, oh my gosh, now we have this problem. How gonna we fix it? We have now employees which are counting on us, which we are paying. Like you're always putting yourself so much on stress, and you feel like, okay, I can't take this day off because if I'm not working on it, I feel like it's bad. So I then still work instead of just doing something relaxing, maybe. And all of that, it comes to, I think, such a like a tension in the whole body because of like you feel so anxious, and then I think this is definitely a part of it.
Yeah, right. So like since now like the conversation comes almost to the end, I want to ask you if somebody's watching until in the end, they like you so much, they like this conversation so much.
I hope
everybody would.
I hope I'm not boring.
No, you're not. It's amazing. Like what kind of message you wanted to deliver in the end of this conversation in terms of, life journey, building a company. Now you're Gen Z, but having back issue, you're working on that. Like what kind of, things you wanted to let anybody know?
I think the biggest, I will answer this message or this question like a message I would love to get before I got into the whole startup life, because I was constantly comparing myself with everybody on LinkedIn, and everybody is like so successful. Like they're like people they are 19 and they built like 3 companies and 2 exits and I don't know, and then they're like so successful.
In the end, it's scammer. Sorry.
But there are many who are actually that successful. And I bought my first stocks when I was 12. I was like, what? Like, and I always felt like I'm not good enough because I am now. I mean, I started my startup with 25. Mm-hmm. Which is still young, but I felt already so old.
Like a boomer, right?
I felt like, oh my gosh, everybody is so far ahead. And so my message is, everybody has his own time, and I think most people heard that already, but it's still so important. Everybody has his own time. If you're 30, if you're 40, you still have time. You still can, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you can still do it. And also, if you're not the person who likes that, it's also okay. It's also okay to have a 9-to-5 job. It's not bad. You're not less worth, or because it's always like people feel like, okay, I have an important position in a company, but I'm not the super cool founder on LinkedIn. But still you have a message, and still you have a lot of great experience which you can share, and you can still do personal branding even if you're not a founder on LinkedIn, for instance. So that's like that's all of that, I think, which was for me important to hear, and now I like to pass it.
I think it's really good because I think everybody are entrepreneurial in different ways. Stay-at-home mom, they are entrepreneurial in taking on a family journey, you know. For me, I'm not entrepreneurial in that way. And also like you said, right, 9-to-5 job, probably they are really good at piano, who knows. I learned 10 years and I sucked. Big time, right?
Yeah.
So it's just very different. And Nadine, thank you for being here with me, and then your work as well. I think it's really important for the world, especially right now, AI, entering digital world, and you're really evaluating the world. And I enjoyed the conversation a lot, and especially your content. So make sure you follow Nadine on LinkedIn. I think you're a true thought leader in the industry.
Thank you so much for having me here.
My editor will know.
And thank you so much. And hope
let's get a coffee.
Let's get a coffee. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, I want to pee so bad. Thank you for listening. And you can leave your comment below, ask the questions, and I will pick one of the best questions and then add as the guest without you knowing who is the guest you are going to ask the question to. So thank you for listening.